Hey, welcome back. It's your man Cigar Life Banks with another episode. Man, here for you guys. I'm out on my patio, and for the viewer that stated that I had a Soul Glow mark on my furniture, you probably right. We had a barbecue. Somebody might have sat there and left a little Soul Glow stain. So let your soul glow. Yeah, they let it shine through right on the furniture. But it's the summertime here in Atlanta. We utilize this patio, so it'll get cleaned sometime in the fall. We can't get out here as much, but right now it's a beautiful day. So welcome to my home again, man. Today we got another banger for you guys. We thank you guys for everything you've done. I've even seen traction out there of guys going into the cigar shops that I've mentioned on the channel, man. So by all means, please like, comment, subscribe, tag your local cigar lounge. The purpose of this channel is literally to grow and build the Cigar Life Nation and to help somebody experience this leaf a lot better than they probably would have had you not met me. So divine intervention got you here. I'm here for it all, right? So today we got a banger. We're talking about the cigars and going into a humidor and not quite understanding what you're looking at and getting a little bit more comfortable with going into a shop. I know some people said, hey, I haven't gone. I'm thinking about going. I'm really not quite sure. Well, today we hope to kind of make that a lot easier for you, right? You go into a humidor and you look at a shelf and you got 3 or 4 boxes there. They all look the same. The wrapper's the same. And everything looks the same until you look down at the price point. This one's $12. This one's $13. This one's $14. This one's $15. And you don't know why. Well, because it has a lot to do with the size, the shape, and then also, just how much tobacco is being utilized to make that cigar. So today we'll kind of talk about that. Maybe you've been to some of the shops and you've heard people say, oh, that's the Corona, that's the double Corona, that's the Robusto, or that's a Toro. And you're not quite sure what that is or what that means. By the time you get done with this video today, hope you have a clear understanding of what that is, and we'll help you along in your cigar journey. So sit back, relax, smoke up a stick, and let's get to it. So let's first start off with it, and let's talk about the construction of a cigar, the cap, the body, the foot, and so forth, and all that. So a lot of times you go into it, you'll hear people talk about 5x50, 6x60. They're talking about the length of it with that smaller number, 5, 6, or what have you, and then the gauge of that stick, from a 38 to, a 60 is what have you. So that is the 5x60, 6x60, things of that nature. Most people understand that. So let's talk about like some of the most popular ones, the Corona. The Corona is what I consider to be the standard, or was the standard as far as flavor balance and profile and things of that nature. Typically about a 5.5-inch stick and about a 42 gauge, if you will, thickness of a cigar, right? And I think for most cigar manufacturers, the Corona was that perfect balance of flavor profile, burn characteristics, cool or hot burn, and so forth, right? So the Corona was that profile. But then, you kind of got those that wanted a little bigger gauge, but not as longer a stick. So the Robustos are some favorites that people look at. Robustos are typically a little shorter than the Corona, but have a bigger gauge, somewhere around the 50 gauge and so forth, right? Packed with a little bit more flavor. Burn is a little cooler than the Corona because of the thickness and so forth. So the Robustos will be that next step up. And then we'll also get into some more as well. But Corona and Robustos are kind of like the favorites or the most popular brands sizes, if you will, that are out there, right? Now, your personal preference may change that, but we're just talking about from an industry perspective, right? So the Corona being that 5.5 by 42 gauge, and then your Robustos are somewhere around that 5-inch range and about a 50 gauge in thickness, if you will, right? They can have the same blend and so forth, but the price point will change because obviously what we'll say, the more tobacco or the more filler, the higher the price point will be. Now let's talk about the next one, the Toro. The Toro's typically like a 6-inch stick with maybe like a 50 gauge, right? So now we've gotten longer here with the Toro, same blend, the whole 9. We're just getting into a longer stick, 6-inch at a 50 gauge range, right? So now you got a little more length there, but again, the same blend. It's just about what you want. But what I've noticed is that as you start to look at cigar smoking, I got a 660 right here, right? And it's called a Gordo Gigante, Gigante, or however you want to pronounce it. We'll talk about that a little later. But more consumers are starting to go for more bang for the buck, right? So if I'm sitting there looking at two sticks that are very similar in size, and I got a Corona that's there, and I may have a Robusto in the same one, then I have a Toro, you're like, okay, it's a couple of dollar difference. I'm going to say I can probably get a much longer smoke out of this, so more bang for the buck. I'm going to choose this one. But when we think about that, it does change the flavor profile just a bit. And we'll talk about that a little later in the video, okay? But let's, for now, we'll keep moving on the different types of cigar shapes there are, and then we'll kind of get into how they impact the flavor and the intensity of that stick. All right, so next, past the Toros, we're literally coming up to one of the longest cigars you'll probably ever encounter. Now, of course, you can encounter some that are a little longer from a novelty smoke as well, but the most popular one is called the Churchill. It's typically a 7-inch stick and about a 47 gauge ring gauge, and it got its popularity because Winston Churchill used to carry those sticks as a almost like a sign of who he was, right? So the Churchill was the Churchill, and so that's how we got the name Churchill. Now, they are longer, a little thinner, but because they are longer and they require a cleaner, longer wrapper to go on the exterior for that presentation, the price point of a Churchill tends to be a little higher than that of a Corona and that of a Robusto of the same blend. I would say that, right? Because different manufacturers' price points are different, right? So you can definitely find a Corona that's more than a Churchill of another blend, right? So don't use that as a across the board type of deal, but we're talking about same blend, same brand, and so forth. The next thing that takes place when you talk about sizes and shapes of cigars are Figurados, right? And they're your shaped cigars, and they come in different types of shapes that take a their own little rendition or artistic impression upon this stick, right? Now, of course, these are going to be a little higher when we're talking about same blends and so forth, because it takes more of a skilled craftsman to construct these sticks. Now that we've kind of talked about the structure of a cigar and construction of a cigar from a length and gauge perspective, right? Let's talk about the different shapes and how they come in, and cigar manufacturers' artistic interpretation of what a cigar should look like. Now, again, I'll tell you this. The 4 or 5 that I named earlier are not the only way these things will come. There are different variations of those. A Corona does not have to be 5.5. It could be a little larger, it could be a little less, and so forth. It is just the interpretation of the manufacturer, but these are just kind of the baselines that I'm giving you. Just like the next group I'm giving you, the Torpedoes, the Bellicosas, and even the Pyramids are 3, I'm going to say, strangely shaped cigars that people gravitate towards. Now, the Torpedoes and the Bellicosas are probably the most popular than the Pyramid. The Pyramid, in my opinion, is more of a novelty stick, and you don't see a whole lot of them out. The Torpedo, if you think about it, is exactly like a torpedo. Narrow on the end, it looks like a torpedo when you look at it. You say, oh, damn, that's a torpedo. But it has a sharp cone. The Bellicosa looks exactly like the torpedo, but the cone is the cap, I should say, is a little rounded on that, right? Would you be wrong if you said, yeah, that's a torpedo, only somebody that's a freaking snob? No, it's not a torpedo, it's a Bellicosa. Nobody cares. But I'm just giving it to you just in case you get into a lounge and you want to know what's what, right? Now, will those cigars burn differently? Some will say yes. Say that concentrated tip, man, allows it to bring in and intensifies the flavors a little better. I don't know. I'm not really a fan of it. You know, it's just my personal preference. I have smoked the LFD Super Bowl sticks they have. They come in the Torpedo, and I've smoked them. They're pretty cool, right? But it's just not my thing. So I'm not knocking it. It's just not my thing. Now, the Perfectos, I kind of enjoy Perfectos because they're narrow at the front and narrow at the back, and you do have a different flavor profile and so forth, in my opinion, again. But, you know, those price points, I would tell you, probably going to be a little higher if you put that up against a Robusto or Corona or things of that nature, and you have a Torpedo variation of that. The price point's going to be a little higher, and you're going to say, Banks, but why? It's still the same blend, it's still the same type of filler. Why is it different? Well, one, if I just got a guy who knows how to roll basic cigars, and he's hand rolling the hell out of those basic cigars, versus the guy that knows how to put that torpedo edge on it and keep that profile the same, it takes a little more of a skilled person to do that, right? And that just ain't your average guy that's a cigar roller in the shop that knows how to make a torpedo, knows how to make a Bellicosa, and so on and so forth. So because I got to get a higher skilled guy to make, a guy or girl. Let me be politically correct. So y'all about to get me in trouble with somebody here. It ain't always got to be guys rolling cigars. You're absolutely right, sweetheart. Guys or girls that roll these cigars in these shops, and we greatly appreciate those handmade sticks. But the skill set, like I said, has to be a little different to be able to roll a Torpedo, a Bellicosa, or even a Pyramid, right? So that price point you could say is a little different, and also the Perfectos as well, right? So the more your skill set that you need, of course, the price point is going to go up as well, right? And I'm going to say the most interesting one out of all of those is like and I'm going to say, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Culebra. And that Culebra, if you've seen them, it looks like a braided stick, right? 3 very small cigars braided together into one smoke. I personally have never smoked it. I don't necessarily know why I would want to stick 3 braided sticks in my mouth and try to get a seal around that. And why would I be practicing that? I have no freaking idea why I would ever do that, right? So I don't know why anybody would do it either. But they're out there. You've seen them, right? Practicality-wise, I don't know. Maybe some of you guys up there tried it. Let me know what you think. I've even seen people that even take them apart, right? Or try to smoke one twirl. It still, to me, is cumbersome. And it just does not look like something I would enjoy. But let me know if you tried it out there in the past, right? And the last part, let's talk about it. And I guess you guys are going to say somebody out there, because you like to smoke them. Well, Banks didn't talk about the Lanceros, or he didn't talk about the Gordos or the Gigante. I didn't, because I think they're the special ones out of the whole group. Lanceros are very, very small and can be a little longer than the Churchills that we talked about. And the Gordos and the Gigantes, or whatever you want to call it, right? Gigantes, they're the big boys, right? And they're kind of, in my opinion, Gordos are typically 6x60. Gigantes, the same thing. They call them what you want to call them. I will tell you, this is probably the largest gauge that I will personally smoke. And not because anything over and above the 60 gauge is, difficult. It just takes too long, and it doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, anything over 60 gauge, it's cumbersome, and it almost burns you up to smoke. It feels like a chore at that point, right? Not to mention that when you're smoking something that's a 70, maybe 80 gauge, and I'm going to say pause, it might be very difficult for you to get a good seal on that thing. Now, maybe you just might be a professional 80 gauge sealer. I don't know. That's a personal opinion. Me personally, I'm not going any higher than that. But, this is about where my limit is on a 60 gauge stick, right? Now, the Lanceros are packed full of flavor because they're smaller. They're quick burn because they're going to burn a lot hotter than the bigger cigars are. So if you're looking for a lot of flavor in your pack, get your Lancero. You'll get that pure flavor. You'll get a lot more flavor input from the wrappers. We talked about wrappers last week, and if wrappers really had a whole lot to do with the flavor and the intensity and the strength, well, in those Lanceros, you would absolutely get more wrapper flavor or wrapper impacted flavors on those Lanceros than any of the other sticks that I've mentioned, right? So I would almost tell you that, when you're thinking about cigars, think about it in a couple of different ways. What's your price point? We always talk about that, right? What's in your price point? And then if you truly want to know what a cigar tastes like, or what is intended to impact you, or how it's intended to do it, I would say stick with the same brand, the same build out, the same blend, and then simply try the different shapes and sizes of that particular blend. That'll give you a true profile as to what that cigar is doing, and you'll get a true idea of what you're supposed to be tasting. Now, a lot of people say, well, Banks, how do you develop your palate? This is one way you can do that. When you ever hear somebody talk about, I can taste the almonds, the chocolate, the leathery, the peppers, that's how you get it. Now, somebody asked me the other day, said on one of the things, name your top 5 sticks or what have you, right? And my reply to, I try to smoke the same stick a lot when I get onto one, right? Because I want to really get that profile. I let them rest in the humidor. I taste them, and I want to really figure out if I really truly enjoy this stick, or if it's just a one-hitter quitter, right? So that's why I do it. So I kind of, once I get on one, I'll stay on it for a couple of weeks, and really get into it so I can get that profile and develop that palate and that taste for me for that particular stick. And then I'll kind of go back to some of my all-time favorites and so forth. Now the last variation is real simple, and it's not really a difference of a cigar. It's the box press. And that could be a Robusto or Corona or Toro and so forth. And it's just simply a box press or squared off version of that particular stick, right? I like those at times. Flat boxes and even thicker box presses are pretty cool as well. It's just a variation on that stick. Now there's some that's going to say because you compress the leads to get this box press, it gives you a better pull and a better draw. Again, that's up for personal interpretation. But the box press is one that you can look at as well. And that typically may have a higher price point simply because it is box press and it looks a little different from presentation. But I haven't found that it actually changes the smoke of that particular cigar for me. Maybe you have. Please let me know in the comments if you feel like it has changed it for you. We've gotten out to the different shapes, the different sizes, and the different variations. Some, not all, right? I'm not telling you this is a complete list. Now let's talk about how those things impact pricing, right? So we kind of touched on a few of them during the video, but let's kind of get into it, right? Obviously, the leaf, the binder, the wrappers, and things of that nature, and the fillers impact the price point. So we understand that. That's not the debate. We're talking about all having the exact same filler, binder, and wrappers, right? Why are they different in prices? Well, let's talk about it. The more tobacco, obviously, the higher the price point. So if you're thinking about apples to apples, a Corona is probably going to be cheaper than the Robusto. The Robusto is going to be cheaper than the Toro. The Toro is going to be cheaper than the Gigante or the Gordo and things of that nature, right? And the Lancero, because it is smaller, will probably be a lot cheaper. Or, well, I'll take that back, right? Because now when you say that, you say, well, Banks, you said all those things, but the Lancero and the Churchill were a little bit more expensive. Well, because of the one thing, it's not because it just necessarily uses more of the fillers. It's now this wrapper comes into play. Because now I got to have a bigger, more flawless wrapper to wrap that long 7.5 inch stick, right? So then that also comes into play with the price point of that, right? So then you understand that, right? So the more tobacco, or if I got to use a longer or larger leaf to wrap that tobacco in that's flawless, that could impact my price point as well. Now, also, let's talk about construction. Well, I told you just a second ago, the Torpedoes, the Bellicosas, and the Pyramids going to take special skilled laborers, if you will, right, or hand rollers, if you will, to roll those. So those can impact the price point as well. So if you're comparing a Torpedo to a Corona, you're going to definitely see a difference in the price point. But the smoke is still the same smoke inside of the stick. So you should be able to enjoy that as well, right? So we understand that. Then obviously the size, a Gordo or 660 is going to be a little bit more than a 550 and so forth, right? And the reason being, the more tobacco we use, obviously the more price point is going to cost. Now, does that change how you smoke or how long a cigar will last you? Abso-freaking-lutely. As mine has gone out, sitting here talking and running my daggone mouth, I will tell you that burn and how fast a cigar burn will definitely impact you on how you enjoy your cigar, right? Now, I don't have to tell you that a Lancero will burn a lot faster than a Gordo, right? Or, that's just common sense, because the smaller diameter, the hotter it'll burn. The larger the diameter or the ring gauge, the more surface there is for it to burn, it's going to burn a lot slower than those smaller ring gauge sticks. So, of course, your enjoyment will be changed a little bit. So you should also choose it based on how long you have to enjoy this stick. We talked about it a few weeks ago. You pull on the stick fast enough and start to over pull it and burn it, you'll get the burning sensation, the taste in your mouth. You're not going to necessarily enjoy that stick, right? So it's going to burn a lot faster. It's going to, I would say, it bothers or it changes your enjoyment of that stick. Now you might like I said last week, and some people talked about it, you might like a damaged cigar, that you might like smoking something that tastes like a burnt leaf. That's completely up to you. But if you really want to get the full enjoyment of it, take your time and smoke it. And understand that when you choose a cigar by its ring gauge, based upon the time you have to enjoy that stick. in closing, when you go into your local cigar shop and you choose your next stick, I hope you take what we talked about today in consideration. That size, shape, construction, and quality should be how you choose your stick. Now, if you're going for the all-time favorite, just consistency and a good balanced stick, I would tell you to go to Robusto or Corona, right? If you want to flare it up a little bit, check out your Torpedoes, your Bellicosas, and even your box presses, right? Just understand that it's really about your experience with this leaf. There's no right or wrong way in choosing the cigar that you like to smoke. Just understanding that the purpose of this video was for you to help you understand the difference in pricing when they are sitting on the shelf and they all look the same to you, with just a slight variation as to why they are what they are. Now, I would almost encourage you to try the different shapes, the different sizes in that particular blend to find which one absolutely fits your palate, right? Or as you're developing that palate. That's just one way of making sure you understand exactly what that stick's supposed to taste like, right? That's a simple and golden rule about this, right? Smoke your smoke. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed making it. Hit me in the comments section. If you have found that you want to add some input to this discussion, please comment at the bottom here. But more importantly, like, comment, subscribe, and also hit that notification bell, right, so you'll be notified when I go live. It's typically around 6 p.m. Thursday on Eastern Standard Time. We're trying to stay consistent with this thing because you guys seem to understand that. Banks is coming on. Banks got something to say, and I like the engagement that you guys have provided thus far. As always, you can find the gear that I'm wearing. Today, I'm absolutely wearing one of my golf favorites, our Stogies and Bogies line, right? And it is our golf apparel, but more importantly, Stogies and Bogies go together. Hopefully your game's a lot better than mine. I'm a bogey guy myself, but I still enjoy a good stogie while I bogey, right? So until next time, it's your guy, Cigar Life Banks, signing off. You guys take care.